We are back at Planet 13 with Cultivated Live. I am Jay Rosenthal. And just a quick show note, I've been saying this whole time, you might hear construction noise. We are not building the cannabis industry, but literally someone is building a cannabis lounge right here at Planet 13, which is great. We are here with Jennifer Fisher. Hello.
Hello.
You're with Goodwin Proctor. I don't know the rest of it. Everybody calls it Goodwin. You are a lawyer.
I am.
One of the foremost attorneys in the cannabis space.
There's lots of great attorneys in the space.
You have to say that. I don't have to say that. You have to say that. Talk about the first time you worked in cannabis.
Okay.
And were you like, oh, this is awesome?
I was like, oh, this is really for a lawyer because there's nowhere to find an answer.
Yeah.
And that's become what I really love about the space. But first time I was given a project which was to analyze a risk of investing in a cannabis company for an investment fund and looking at all of their deal documents and like how they were governed and some of the restrictions that were in place and sort of assessing the risk. And this was in 2017. So this was really uncharted territory for this investor, but also for many people looking at the space. And so it was, thinking about the risk in a way of like, here are these state regimes that are coming online, here's this overlay of federal illegality, and there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what the risk is. So, and there was really just me thinking it through. There was like no case law to point to, no regulatory rule from the SEC, like nothing. And so it made it a little daunting because a lot of lawyers like to try and like find an answer. And this was like based on my experience and looking at all of these laws and these documents, here's my best advice about how to assess your risk.
So was this just thrown at you in 2017 or were you like, I want to do a cannabis deal? How did it come about?
Did you raise your hand or were you volunteering?
Yeah, so I did raise my hand. I was really,
so
I live in San Francisco, and in 2016 voters passed, the adult use legalization. And so I started to see people getting really excited about California, like such a big market with an already really entrenched consumer base of medical patients, thinking about what this industry could mean for a state like California and the population there. And a lot of investors were really interested in getting on board early. And I had worked in my prior years in practice, I'd done a lot of white criminal defense, and I worked with a lot of companies and officers and directors and investors in highly regulated spaces. So that was the background I was coming from. So it was a little bit used to this dynamic of, okay, like how do we navigate a complex, like regulated industry, and try to make money in it. That's what my clients were, traditionally interested in doing. And so I kind of used that experience to transition my practice into cannabis. But I was really excited about getting involved in the space and what it could mean, and that it was so new and cutting edge. I really liked that. So I started putting myself out there, raising my hand, and telling people that I could help them think this through as they were getting ready to enter the industry.
Not trying to be funny by any means, but you work for a very legitimate firm. I'm wondering what conversations are like in 2017. Like, were they like, should we even take these clients?
Yeah.
And
so
what was that like?
I love that you asked that question because our
like the
team,
word legitimate.
Our team,
some aren't. Should have said that.
Yeah. So our team from Goodwin, there's 10 lawyers here with us for this week. We're really excited. We brought our practice, including the younger associates who are doing a lot of hard, good, and interesting work in the space, with us to MJ BizCon this week, and we had a team dinner last night, and many of them don't know the origin story of the practice because they came in and Goodwin, which is like we were the first of the largest U.S.-based law firms to have a formally established cannabis program in practice with the full support of the partnership and the executive leadership of the firm. Was very rare in 2016, 2017, still is somewhat rare. Mm-hmm. There's more law firms like Goodwin doing work in the space, but quietly. not that we are not quiet about the work we do and the clients we represent. But we were telling the story last night at dinner about like how hard that was to get here. Right. You know, lots of things that a lot of other sort of more traditional service providers, even financial institutions, we grappled with as a firm. Like, how does this affect our banking relationships, and how does this affect reputationally with our other clients? We didn't have to worry about that too much, because Goodwin, we represent lots of entrepreneurs in lots of sort of cutting edge spaces like life sciences and technology, all doing sort of interesting entrepreneurial, innovative work. So we weren't as concerned about that, but it was a factor we had to take into consideration. And then just sort of establishing some protocols around who we would work with and who we wouldn't in the space. And those very much still exist today.
Thinking about the trajectory 2017 to now, and you've been to the show a lot. I mean, we talked, I think, last time we were all here. Has the mood at the firm, that's not even what I mean, but like, has that risk tolerance or even the precedent changed dramatically, obviously, since then? Like, how does that affect the work that you do?
It really does, because I think we've seen sort of two different trajectories where risk tolerance has grown because people have seen the space develop without federal enforcement, and as we get, you know, these little glimpses into like what the federal government may or may not do, it's hopefully trending in the right direction and not the wrong. I mean, in 2018 when Jeff Sessions came on, we board and rescinded the Cole memo. We had a lot of discussions with our clients about what that means, and then it ended up not really being meaningful for them in a lot of ways. And so now people at least have some history to look at and say, okay, I think this is probably something we are going to be interested in, an industry we're going to be interested in getting involved in, and we're thinking less about like the enforcement risk. But now it's more the just investment risk. Like, this is a very tough market. So it used to be like seen as like green rush for those who were willing to take the risk, and now it's more like, well, there's more people willing to take the risk, but the reward isn't as great. And so we're starting to see some people back out or stay on the sidelines for now, just because it's been a really hard and challenging year for the industry.
We just call those smart people. I'm just kidding.
How do you advise for that investment risk, right? Because there's no, as you said, there's no right answers.
Yeah.
No one can really predict anything. If they say they can, they probably have a bridge to sell you.
Totally.
So how do you look at these risks, and how do you help clients navigate those?
Well, it's so interesting. People ask me all the time as if I know, and Jay and I were talking about how we know each other from politics back in the day. I worked on the Hill, I worked on campaigns. I'm the first person that will admit that no one can really predict what's going to happen on Capitol Hill. Things could change in an instant because of something totally unrelated to cannabis, and this just like gets tacked onto it. Who knows? Or we could continue to see total stalemate. And so when people ask me about safe banking or rescheduling or the farm bill, I'm like, I'll tell you what I think, but it's just as worth as much as anyone else thinks. Because, I think even when you're on the inside, you still don't really know how it's going to play out.
But it's that, but it's also like, and we all spend a lot of time talking to people in the industry where this is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Rescheduling, descheduling, safe banking, farm, but whatever it is. And what I try to say is like, it's basically zero people who are making those decisions most important thing. Most of the time. Like people very rarely is it someone's main focus to get safe banking passed through 100%. The Senate. Like, it's just...
Yeah. Even when, you hear some members say it's their priority, like among a lot of other things, and especially in the world we live in now, they have a lot of other pressing and important business to do, and they're having a hard time getting that stuff done.
They're having a hard time getting anything
done. I mean, then you layer on top the complexity of the issues that we need addressed, because they are pretty complex from a regulatory standpoint, and you layer on like the dysfunction of government.
We're going to talk about that.
It's like, okay, how do we ever get out of this?
We have folks coming on from talk about U.S. Cannabis Council stuff, and we'll dive deep into that. But it is, even just working on the Hill, that it's like, it's not haphazard, it's not the right word. Unpredictable is the word.
It's unpredictable. Yeah. And I think even, you know, when people take their best educated guesses at what's going to happen, for us in cannabis, we've been wrong a lot.
Doesn't help build credibility.
Just when we thought things were there was going to be movement, and there wasn't. I think it's just been a lot of disappointment in that regard, and so it's hard to recover from that and think that. So how we've been advising our clients from a operational perspective, regulatory, is to march forward as if there's going to be no change. Do what you're doing, become operationally efficient, you know, make good choices, and, you know, and then if there's a change that is going to improve things remarkably for you, great. But let's not count on that happening anytime soon. But I think rescheduling is obviously huge, and could be, you know, really significant. Yeah. And that's just a timing question. We just don't know.
You don't want to predict and give us an exact date?
Predict something, yeah.
You want to make news? No, I'm just kidding. I do, well, I like you, that's first and foremost, but I also appreciate talking to you because you have a perspective that's longer than 5 minutes. Like it actually starts with making the case, I would imagine, to even your own firm that this is worthwhile taking on, and then carrying it through a number of years until now, where we're you know, whether it's a year or 5 from now, we are on the precipice of something big, and it's already big, but you know what I mean. Imagine rescheduling, imagine safe banking, imagine imagine interstate commerce.
You know, the companies, you know, clients that I work with, just being able to be treated as any other businesses.
What fun would that be?
I can't wait. I can't wait for that day. I mean, their legal problems might become a little less complex, but I'm excited for that for them because there'll be other challenges at that point, but. Some of these basic things, I would love to see them, just those hurdles removed.
Normalize things.
Yeah.
It's really about normalizing for the lawyers. Let's make it easier for them. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a really good selling point, I think, for politics.
That's how we should be lobbying.
Customers would love.
Exactly.
I really appreciate you stopping by. It's always good to talk to you and to see you, and to hear your perspective of how things are going. So thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. You could stay all day. That'd be great. Again, we are live at Plant 13. This is Cultivated live from Plant 13, under construction, which is great because there's going to be a lounge here one day, and maybe next year we'll just have it in the consumption lounge, which will make the day a lot more interesting. You won't be able to get here as early in the day. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Jason Tarasek of Vicente, another lawyer, but we're actually going to be diving deep into what's happening in Minnesota, which is one of the markets that people keep talking about. We'll talk about how they got to this weird place they are now and where they're going. We'll be right back in a second.